What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round two stream. Gonna combine our showdown and prize picks videos together. And honestly, today on the course was a fun one. Pretty easy to have a blast when, of course, the golf is excellent. Lots of good scores out there. But on top of that, when you're winning money, right? Our prize picks had a 3x day on showdown for our regular 4-round lineups. I mean, I was in first place in the large field GBP for at least 3/4 of the day. I mean, at this point, still have 4 lineups in the top 50 of the large field GBP. It's hard to beat a day like today, right? When, not only are you having fun in person watching the event, but also raking in cash on the side. And we're celebrating, right? Obviously, we got some whiskey. We're running back with, Whiskey Wednesdays with yet another day because, on the course, obviously having some fun. And we're bringing you a live stream too. Didn't know if I was going to do this or not. Obviously, have a lot going on here, but kicked my buddies out for another 20, 30 minutes here. They're 100% going to be on stream this time. It is what it is, guys. You're going to have some noise in the background, that sort of thing. But going to bring you guys the goods here for Showdown, and then afterwards for some prize picks too, which I know a lot of you out there are playing. I mean, it's one of the more profitable ways to play DFS. So if you're not playing over there on prize picks, you absolutely have to go over there. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll start with a look at the golf course, which today, was on grounds. And there are a few things I learned. So first and foremost, it is going to be a soupy mess tomorrow. Today, you had that torrential downpour right around like 1:32 p.m. I brought my rain gear. I had an umbrella as well, so I was good to go. I was one of the only people on property that seemed to look at the weather forecast, because not only were a lot of the players without rain gear, pretty much every single fan didn't have an umbrella. And I mean, they are locals, right? They're local to Atlanta. You'd expect those slapdicks to understand that, oh, there's weather in the forecast. You might want to bring an umbrella, right? Because I had like 4 people huddled under my umbrella, just slapdicks. I almost wanted to tell them no, just to be like, go get your own umbrella, because me and all my boys, we had our umbrellas today. We were squatted up, pretty much all ready for the weather. No one else was, though. But what that led to was great scoring, particularly for the guys that teed off after the torrential downpour, or at least only played through a few holes of it. You had a scoring average of 2.1 shots under par. The greens were extremely receptive. I mean, you were getting like a 2 to 3 foot bounce. Then most of them were stopping, if not coming backwards. In the fairways, I saw a few driver shots that actually hit the ground, bounced up, and went backwards. Had a little bit of backspin off the tee. You're not going to see that very often. It was a soupy mess. And where all the fans were, I mean, it was just pure mud, like grudge, pure sludge at a certain point. That isn't going to dry out of a golf course overnight. Doesn't matter if they have a world-class groundskeeping crew. It's going to be really wet there tomorrow, regardless of the weather. And I mean, if you just looked at Wind Finder for tomorrow, I mean, you'd probably expect there not to be much weather. But if you look at any other wind source, any other weather source here for the Atlanta area, it's calling for right around a 40 to 50% chance of thunderstorms. So not just the rain showers that we saw today, all the way from right around noon until 6 to 7 p.m. So tomorrow, I'm at least expecting there to be a little bit of a delay. In fact, I'm probably going to come back to the Airbnb at some point tomorrow and just chill out in the afternoon when that sort of weather delay happens. But expect that too. There are thunderstorms in the forecast, and anytime that happens, you're going to have a delay, whether it's an 1.5 to 2-hour delay, whether it's the entire afternoon that ends up getting postponed. That's going to be a part of the story tomorrow. So winds look relatively low, right? They're 1 to 3 miles an hour. You can see pretty much the entire day in terms of sustained winds. And then the wind gusts, max out at a whopping 5 miles an hour. Ooh, they're right around 1 p.m. Eastern time. So the conditions are going to be beautiful. I mean, even when this so-called storm comes through, but they might not finish the round tomorrow, right? It could very well end up going into Saturday, which, if they're playing there on Saturday morning, I'd assume that they're teeing off right around like 10, 11 a.m. If it has to bleed into Saturday, you're still looking at really good conditions, right? 1 to 3 miles an hour of sustained wind. Same thing with the wind gusts. So no matter when they end up actually playing this round, expect similar conditions to what we saw here on Thursday, which is right around 2.1 shots under par. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Usually you see right around a 1.2 shot under par average. So that was nearly a stroke better there in round 1 than what we usually see year to year. And I'm pretty comfortable projecting that here for Friday's round 2. I mean, like I said, it was a soupy mess down there. Pretty much everywhere where the actual fans were standing was just pure sludge. Like I was mentioning, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So Expected to play, very receptive, very easy, like we saw here for Thursday. What we'll do now is hop over to the player poll, also catch up on chat, see what's going on down there. We had a ridiculously good day today in terms of our projections and whatnot, but let's see what's going on. We have Justin says, I saw you up there. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about the GBP. We had a lot of fun there. What's going on, Justin? Hopefully you're doing well here this Wednesday. Mark says, your single entry advice helped so far. Yeah, my single entry right now is in 9th place of the $40 GBP. It's like in 3rd place of the 222. It's, I think, in 15th place of the $6 special GPPs that they have out there. Yeah, we're having a pretty good week so far. So yeah, nice lineup. Glad you liked it. We had Poston in there, Tom Hoagie on there. Aaron Wise was also in that lineup. And then up top, we had Xander, Scotty Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy. So after Rory made the triple bogey in number 1, I wasn't feeling too hot about that single entry. But by the end of the day, right, we're sitting in pretty much the mayor's office at this point. In the Largeville GPP, I even have lineups in the top 50 with Rory McIlroy in them. Just that's how many birdies, that's how much he scored today from a raw points perspective. It was a good day, even for the guys that sucked early on. By the end, they ended up having a pretty good day. Grant, what's going on? You have Cub Woods in the chat. What's going on? I didn't know that was you. It's great to have you down there. Mar Shark said slapdick of the week so far, Connors. Well, I didn't play Connors. So I have a hard time classifying him as slapdick of the week. When I didn't play him, I was a pretty vocal fade of somebody like a Corey Connors. For me, the guy I played today that was kind of a slapdick, let me think. It's tough because, Jordan Spieth, he cost me a little bit on Prize Picks, but he didn't have a bad round. Cam Smith cost me a little bit with his fairways on Prize Picks. Didn't really have a bad day. On DraftKings, I hate to use this, guys. I'm not trying to flex here. I'm not trying to be a dick. Literally, my entire player pool played well. Like every single guy of like the 19 that I took out of the 29 smashed today. Like it's like the top 19 on the leaderboard. It's been a while since I've had a day where like literally every play I've had smashed. That's pretty much what it was today. So I honestly, Marsharks, I don't even have a slapdick of the week for you this week. I don't really think I've had anything go wrong. Steven says, pay attention, Luke is the bomb, or don't lose money. Hey, I think that's pretty good advice. I'm not going to argue with you there. Mark says, wish I brought Mr. Me Broly. Oh, yeah. I'm assuming you're at the golf course. Yeah, you probably should have brought that umbrella, man. It was kind of funny watching people huddle around trees that really weren't giving them any cover today. That was kind of funny. Deep Purple says, is Garrick Higo in play? He's not playing today. So, no, he's definitely non-play. Justin Wilson says, I loved Wise for Showdown today. I'm going to be out as a single. Yeah, I think tomorrow that's Corey Connors. So I'm playing Corey Connors in a similar situation. In fact, yeah, I think he's one of the plays I have on here. Yeah, we're going to talk about him a little bit later. I like him in that same type of situation. So yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I'm glad I played him today. Grant says, I wish Bez was in the field so I could fade him. I couldn't agree anymore. Justin says he could roll with whatever tempo he chose. Exactly. And same thing with Corey Connors tomorrow, right? He deals with issues with the putting. So, he can go out there, just roll on with that ball strike and, hit those approach shots, those off the tee shots like he's used to, and then take his time with the putting, right? Sit back there, really get their reads correct, talk over it with his caddy, all that sort of fun stuff. You might see a low round for Corey Connors tomorrow, just because he doesn't feel the pressure to maybe speed up his putting tempo because, he can take some time with that. He's not the best green reader. You can tell that when he's looking over putts, surveying it. If he has less pressure, a little bit more time, maybe it works out. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But I like to stay with Wise. Yeah, it paid off for sure. Mark says, will Spieth justify your love tomorrow? He doesn't have to do anything to justify his love. Quite honestly, anybody that hates on Jordan Spieth is a slapdick. Multiple-time major champion. You're talking about a kid who's arguably one of the greatest of all time around the green. He doesn't have to do anything to justify my love for him. He's done enough already, to be honest with you. Sway says, Rory Def had a day, pretty much did everything but get pars. Yeah, through like 8 holes, he had like 2 pars. That was pretty funny. And Travis says, hitting the bars in round 2 tonight. Yeah, we're going out after, actually. I kicked him out for a little bit. They're still at the pizza bar. Went back early, uploaded my projections, going to do this. And then, yeah, we're going out afterwards. So, yeah, Travis, it'll be a fun one tonight. But let's talk through this player poll. So let me make sure I've got my screen up. I do. Let me make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to zoom in too. I always get comments that people can't see this shit. So let me go ahead and make it bigger so you can see this shit. So I don't get any more comments like that out of there, which, by the way, guys, not on purpose, right? Obviously, if there's anything wrong with the live stream, anything that you see that can be clearly improved, and it's something as easy as just making things bigger, just let me know, right? I'm always open to suggestions out there. Let's talk about the player pool though. So up top, above 10 grand, I'm okay with a few of them, but I don't think you have to play a guy above 10 grand tomorrow. Like, in fact, if you're starting with a single entry, a 2 to 3 max, that sort of thing, I think just starting with like maybe a John Rahm, that we're going to talk about here in a second, is more than adequate because you have a lot of guys here in the 9K range. Also, I mean, even the 8 and 7K range, like a Colin Morikawa, like a Jordan Spieth, like a Fitzpatrick, for example, who went off today, right? I don't understand why he's $7,900. You could fit all of them into a lineup. Like you can start your lineup like John Rahm. You could take Tony Finau here, who we'll talk about here in a second. You could put Victor Hovland in it, and you could pretty much finish it off with like a Matty Fitz, Jordan Spieth, and I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to have maybe enough for another 8K option at that point to try and round out your lineup. Another one or two of those sort of guys. It's really easy to build just pure studs for tomorrow. And what we have to remember for Showdown, right, just from a top level perspective, is everyone's on the same playing field. There are no starting strokes anymore. There are no placement points here for round 2 Showdown. And I can almost guarantee you that first off, Scotty Scheffler is going to be a little bit higher owned for tomorrow than you'd expect. And then on top of that, you're going to have guys that shot well today that people just love rallying behind, right? So let's talk about a few of those players. First off, Xander Schauffele, I expect to get quite a bit of attention. He played pretty well today. Let's move on a little bit further. I guess towards the 7K range, there's going to be a few real chalky slapdicks. So Aaron Wise will be super chalky. You're going to see a lot of chalk behind JT Poston, Tom Hoagie, Joaquin Niemann, Matt Fitzpatrick, all of these sort of players that shot -4, -5, -6, or even better today. All of them are going to get at least 15-20% owned tomorrow and are arguably the same type of plays as everyone else around them. So my general theory here for the second round is going to be take the pivots, right? It's going to be all about just the lower owned plays that are the same, if not better players than their peers that are higher owned, because we know that golf is volatile. It's an extremely random sport, and it's even harder to go out there and have a good round after you've already had one there in the first round. In fact, anytime somebody can back up a really stellar round in round 1 with another one in round 2, we remember it, right? Joaquin Niemann, for example, JT Poston at the John Deere Classic. We can literally almost recite all of them from this year. In fact, it's only happened 3 times. Seamus Power did it at one point. I forget the golf tournament. It was early in the year, though. Then Joaquin Niemann did it, and then JT Poston was able to back up his round at the John Deere Classic. It really hasn't happened outside of that, where somebody has gone absolutely nuclear in round 1 and then round 2 and been the nuts play in both circumstances. So you can almost always, and it's not always, right? I said almost always fade those sort of players and get off the next day, right? And have a huge advantage over the field because not only are they less likely to succeed, again, it's a volatile sport, right? It's hard to back that up. They're also higher owned. And they're usually higher priced. And you can say that a lot of those things about the same sort of guys in this field. So that's always in the mindset. I think people that have been here for a while probably already knew that. But hey, we've got new people on the stream here. Sometimes people need reminded of the strategy that we're doing here for round 2 Showdown. That's the general consensus that we're going with. So John Rahm kind of fits that type of mold there where he didn't have the best round today. It certainly wasn't a poor round. I mean, he still shot 3 under par, was hitting a ton of greens. In fact, I think hit over 14 greens on the day. His driving accuracy was decent. He had 8 out of 14 fairways. I know that because of my prize picks prop today, but fits the golf course to a T. We saw that last year, and he's $9,500. He's more than cheap. I mean, you could take him as a second man in, but like I mentioned, if you're starting lineups with a John Rahm, I mean, you're not going to have unlimited salary, but given the fact that guys like a Colin Morikawa are $7,500, I think you have an idea that you can build a really solid lineup, right? Starting with somebody like a John Rahm, and with the fake placement points, with all the starting strokes or placement points that really don't even matter, or actually don't even exist here for the second round. It makes that type of build a little bit more attractive. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of John Rahm. Another guy I talk about is Tony Finau at $8,600. Now, he had a horrible day today. I faded him in my 4-round contests, faded him on prize picks. I took the over on strokes. Excuse me, guys. Got a little bit of gas going here in my chest. Ooh. too many whiskeys, too many tequilas on the golf course today. But he had a horrible day himself, right? I'm pretty sure that Tony Finau probably wanted some tequila out there, probably wished that he was having a few drinks on the golf course because he couldn't make a birdie for his life. He needs some birdie juice, as they call it out there. And really, he did the same thing last week, right? Let's remember, right? First round, what did he shoot like? Wasn't it like 7-8 over par? It was something completely atrocious. And then the next day came back and was almost under par. In fact, shot like 4 or 5 under par. If he did it last week, he's more than capable of doing it again. And now he's $8,600. I have him at 17.5% projected owned, which you might think is a little bit high, but for this slate with only 30 players, he's like by far the lowest owned player in this 8K range. I mean, count me in, right? He's still a world-class player. He's won twice in the last few months. These are the type of guys that I'm looking to get to in bunches. So Tony Finau fits that same type of build. Something I might mention as well is that the conditions are conducive towards a bomber type of skill set. I meant to mention this during the intro. Again, I'm drinking whiskey, guys. I'm not going to be able to remember everything the first time, but we'll get to it eventually, like I mentioned. These really wet, damp, receptive conditions is probably a good word to use for it. Favor a bomber type of skill set, right? John Rahm, long off the tee, right? The extra rollout doesn't really do much for him to begin with, right? He's mostly carry, if not a little bit less rollout than most players. Same thing with a Tony Finau, right? He's almost all just carry distance. It doesn't affect these bombers nearly as much as a shorter player. Let me give you an example here. I mean, the guys up top, probably not the best examples. They're pretty much all bombers there. But Victor Hovland gets a good amount of rollout because of his his right to left ball shape. Let's see. Corey Connors, because of his accuracy, he's somebody who kind of depends on that rollout. So you don't want to look at him for off the tee stats tomorrow, right? He's all about approach play. We're going to talk about him. He's also by himself on the golf course. Still a few reasons that we're playing him. But let's see, who else is relatively short? Like Billy Ho, right? Cage Lee, not the longest player off the tee. Brian Harman, for sure, right? Sepp Straka, all these sort of players kind of depend on the extra rollout to have off the tee success. So, I mean, if you're going to take somebody that isn't a bomber tomorrow, you better be damn sure of it, right? You better have a good reason for trying to get to that sort of player because they're not going to be excluded, right? It's still golf. They're more than capable of going out there and having a solid round. But the guys that I expect to have better success in general are these bombers because with the, soft conditions, they're equipped to actually play that sort of golf course, right? Whereas those shorter hitters are going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball. So I like those two guys up top. Victor Hovland at $7,700. I'll be playing too. He didn't have the best day today. Also wasn't the worst. Really, it was pretty average when it comes to Victor Hovland. In terms of the scoring average, he was worse than that, but the ball striking really didn't tell the whole story. He had a few squirrely around the green shots, which cost him a few shots. The putter wasn't nearly as sharp as you'd hope for Victor Hovland, and last week he kind of proved it, right? Round 4 showdown, he was starting in like last place. He wasn't actually in last, but he was close to it, which for Victor Hovland in a 70 person field is pretty close to last place, right? He doesn't expect to be down there. What did he do? Made a hole in one. He made like 6 birdies on the day. He was the absolute nuts there on Showdown. He's capable of doing that. He's capable of turning it around. He's got a good mindset. He's got a good head on his shoulders when it comes to his mental game out there. He's not going to let a sorry round 1 hold him back. He's going to go out there with a brand new clean slate tomorrow. And I kind of love that about Victor. As much shit as I give him, I talk about his around the green play, the fact that he doesn't care enough about it. I don't even think he tries to get better around the green, which I think is the worst part about it. It's why I give him shit about it. I think he needs to wake up. I think if he does, he might be an all-time great type of player. But hey, for Showdown, we don't care about that, right? If he's missing greens, he's going to suck anyways. We really don't want that player to begin with. That's why I love him in Showdown. That's why I'm always willing to get to Big Dick Vic when it comes to Showdown play because he's got the perfect skill set for it. And that's why I'm so high on him, high on his potential long-term. I mean, if he can figure out the around the green play, like everything he does that actually like wins you golf tournaments, which is approach play, off the tee play, right? And then putting, clutch putting, he can do. It's just that he has one part of his game that most players that have all 3 of those skill sets already have, which is around the green rate, saving yourself. That's just pure golf scoring, right? Most guys that make it to tour are golfers, right? Guys that have game, right? They have a little bit of a competitive mindset to them. Almost all of those sort of guys, can get up and down. They know the value of scoring. I don't think Victor Hovland knows the value or understands the value of actually scoring when it comes to golf. He's kind of like all about the track man, right? All about just going out there, hitting good shots, right? Making putts, for example. That's not really golf. Golf is all about the actual score that you put on the scorecard, right? And that's what Victor struggles with. And hey, in Showdown, again, that doesn't matter, right? We just want him to be going out there and playing trackman golf, hitting fairways, hitting greens, putting it to 15 feet and making putts. But unfortunately for him, it usually rears its ugly head at least once over the 4-round sample size. Let's talk about Corey Connors now. He's going off by himself. He had a horrible round today. I faded him this week. I'm pretty happy about it. But one thing I know is pretty much just tried, tested at this point. It happens almost every single time. Is that slapdick that I fade in round one that plays horribly almost always bounces back. And now that's not the only reason I'm playing him. He's going off by himself. Aaron Wise thrived in that same type of scenario today, but he played well. He played well from tee to green. He lost 2 strokes putting. Those are the sort of players I love getting to, right? You know, especially Corey Connors, who maybe isn't the best player on tour, particularly with the flat stick, but this year he's been a gainer. In fact, he's gaining close to like a quarter of a stroke per round on the greens. And over his last 24 rounds, it was a little bit lower than that. It was closer to a neutral in that category. But neutral putting Corey Connors is like a top 25 machine. In fact, back in 2019 and 2020, actually, 2020 and 2021, you know, when he was going out there and it was a neutral putter, we were really happy about it, right? Because a top 25 at he used to be like $6,900. We were thrilled about that. That was more than enough for large field contests. You know, this week he was $8,000. Top 25 might not be enough, especially in this field, right? I mean, duh, right? 30-person field, top 25 is not going to be enough. But now that he's $7,100, he has a lot more firepower to get to that ceiling performance, particularly if he can gain on Bermuda, where it has been the only surface over his last 2 years where his baseline is a positive on it. In fact, I believe it's like a 0.2, 0.3 shot difference between Bermuda, where he's getting 0.08 shots per round on it, to his next best surface, which I believe is like a bent POA mix. So it's by and far his best surface, the one that he's the most familiar on. Played well today from tee to green, gained in all 3 categories. I could see a bounce back tomorrow, particularly because he's playing by himself. Next up, we've got Hideki Matsuyama, who's $6,600. Yes, I'm going to say that again because it's really that simple, to be honest with you. Hideki Matsuyama is $6,600 and he's healthy. Again, I saw him on the range there on Wednesday, was full lash hitting at golf balls, and today showed no signs of any injury as well. In fact, played pretty decently with a lot of his iron shots. The off the tee play was a little bit inaccurate, a little bit rusty in that department. Even on the range on Wednesday, he looked a little bit rusty, but kind of like Victor Hovland, right? These sort of guys can turn it around. We've seen it just time and time again. For Victor, we've seen it last week. I mean, in the past, Hideki Matsuyama has been an absolute madman when it comes to his scorecard. I don't put it past him to go out there and shoot something like 4 to 5 under par tomorrow. And again, Hideki Matsuyama is $6,600. Again, there's no one at $5,000 this slate, right? So it's not like he's $1,600 more than the minimum. He's $600 less than the cheapest golfer, who's Tom Hoge, right? And that's Hideki. We were talking about like a $10,500 golfer during the fall swing, right? When he was winning all those golf tournaments. That is ridiculous, right? You're kidding me, right? He's going to be a little bit higher owned, right? He's 14.4%. You think I care about that? It's still Hideki at $6,600. So, again, guys, we're going to leave it at that. I don't think you need to hear more of an argument than that. It's just he's $3,000. Okay, $3,000 might be a little bit much. He's $2,000 less expensive than he should be. It's really that simple. And he's not that highly owned either. And last up, I guess, yeah, I'm only going to give you, let's see, what is it, 6 picks here? Yeah, again, there's only 30 players, right? I can't give you the entire player pool. The rest of the picks, everyone I'm taking, I believe there's 19 for this round, are on Patreon. Let's talk about Brian Harman. So $6,300, love Bermuda grass. Didn't have the best round today. Also, wasn't that bad. I believe he shot like 2 under par by the end of it. He plays well at no matter what golf course. You can take him at short courses, plotter. You know, he's had a lot of success at those type of venues. He's also had a lot of success at big boy golf courses. The one thing I really care about with Brian Harman is that, first off, he's a little bit lower owned than his peers. In fact, I have Lee right around that same level of ownership. JT Poston higher owned than somebody like a Brian Harman. Also Tom Hoge, a little bit higher owned than somebody like a Brian Harman. So you're getting a slight ownership pivot going to somebody like Brian, but also just, I think, a higher pedigree player. Like if we take a look, zoom out a little bit for like the last 2 years, Brian Harman is on this sort of skill set level as like an Aaron Wise up here, right? And I know it's like a $500 difference. But he's up there with like a Sahith Theegala, right? Hideki Matsuyama. At least in my opinion, after you get past Billy Horschel here, there is a massive talent gap difference, right? Go from Billy Horschel, who's an arguably top 30, top 40 player in the world at the very worst, down to Cage Lee, who's probably outside the top 100, Sepp Straka, who's certainly outside the top 100 world golf rankings, JT Poston for sure, same, maybe not Tom Hoagie. Maybe Tom Hoagie's a little bit better, right? He won this year. He showed up, top 5, top 10, did a few golf tournaments. Poston, Straka, and Cage Lee are inferior to everyone else in the field. They're not top 30 players in the world. The only reason they're here, guys, and I hate to use this tough love, I said it in the Patreon, is because of Liv. The only reason they're here is because of the Liv golfers dropping out, right? If they were here, I can guarantee you they wouldn't be here. In fact, they'd be guys like Aaron Wise who aren't here. Guys like Scott Stallings would have been kicked out. Corey Connors as well. Same thing with Adam Scott. There's a lot of guys in this field that are just inferior when it comes to their talent level. I mean, I'd include Adam Scott in that, to be quite frank with you. Scott Stallings as well, probably even Corey Connors. They're at +3. All these guys are just worse players than the rest of the field, right? You got to keep that in mind, right? Just because they've come into this field with a little bit of form doesn't mean they're on the same level as the other players. So just keep that in mind. Brian Harman, though, I don't want to say he's part of that higher tier, but he's at the very least like in the middle of that, because we've seen him show up at majors before. We've seen Brian Harman consistently make it through the playoffs before. Like, this isn't his first time making it to the Tour Championship. It's not his first time making it to the BMW Championship, for that matter, right? He's done that plenty of times over his career. A lot of the other guys here, especially like a Cage Lee, Sepp Straka, JT Poston, Tom Hoagie, it's like their first time ever being here, right? Just remember that there's levels when it comes to the PGA Tour. Showing up for one season, having a hot year, it's exactly that sometimes for players, right? And a lot of times those sort of players tend to fizzle out. What we'll do now, because we went through the player poll, let's go ahead and catch up on chat, see what's going on. Then we're going to go ahead and talk through a few lineup builds. We'll talk through a GPP build, also a cash build, and then get into the prize pick stuff, which I talked about at the beginning of the stream. Let me see where you're at on the chat. Got to scroll way back here. Looks like there's a few questions. Travis says, anyone you watched today that just seems off? It looks like Jordan Spieth's putting was off. He was shaking his head a whole lot out there. And normally when you see that little, head down, little, grimace, a little bit of a head shake there, it usually means they're just not on that day. I saw that with Jordan Spieth. A lot of times that turns around, though, so I do think it might turn around. Let me think off the top of my head. Not that I can think of. I mean, I followed a lot of really good groups. I mean, Joaquin Niemann was playing with Spieth, so I saw some world-class golf there. I was following the Rory and Cam Smith group. They both played pretty well today. I followed the Scotty Scheffler and Scotty Scheffler and Cantlay group. Cantlay was a little bit off. I'll say that, actually. Cantlay hit a few golf shots today where, he looked like he was really engaged with it. He thought it was going to be a beautiful golf shot. It landed, and he turned to his caddy and just shook his head. And he was befuddled. He was like, I thought that was a great shot. And obviously, one of them was actually on 16. I needed him to miss a fairway to hit on a bunch of prize picks cards. And he missed. And I kind of had to hold back doing a little fist pump over here. I was like, yeah. In my head, I did that, obviously. But he looked pretty pissed about it. So I guess I'd say Patrick Cantlay. But most people looked pretty good today. Scoring was pretty good. So a lot of people weren't all that engaged with it. Jack says, I think it's vital Xander got in that last group with Scotty Scheffler. Maybe he can apply some pressure. Yeah, it is vital. He loves the golf course. I mean, he's going to shoot 3 or 4 under par almost every single day. So yeah, I think that could be huge. Al says touting a lineup after Thursday has to be certain death going forward. I mean, yeah, but when have I done that? When has anybody in the chat done that? All I said is that my single entry is doing pretty well so far. I mean, to be quite honest with you, jackass, I mean, I know why you're saying that. You're probably just a very sorry Bengals fan that has nothing to really root for. Maybe that's your issue, Al Paul, is that you're a Bengals fan. You have issues in your life. People can celebrate when they have success, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like all doom and gloom. Like, oh, I have a winning lineup. Let me shut up about it because I've never won before. I've won plenty of times, Al, before. And a lot of times, I'll celebrate throughout the event, right? When you're in first place after round 1, I've had that hold to round 4 before. So let's not be a slapdick, Al, and I'll be like, oh, we're talking about a lineup after round 1. Yeah, well, at least I'm on last place like you probably are after round 1, little Bengals fan. How about you get the fuck out of here, little boy? You're getting banned for life because you're a Bengals fan. I don't want you around here anyways. Let's get the little slapdick Bengals fan out of here. We got Mambo says, will Cantlay show up tomorrow? I think so. I think he's got a bounce back in him. I'm not going to bet on it myself. I'm not going to be there, monetarily Mamba mindset, but he's a world-class player. He's going to be grinding on the range. Like I mentioned, he was hitting shots that he thought were really good today, and then they ended up missing the green by like 4 or 5 yards. He can get that figured out, right? He's just got to calibrate it. He's got to figure out what's going on and get it figured out. And if he does so, he's got more than enough putting ability to get to his ceiling performance. So I don't want to talk you off of Mamba. I'm not going to be there myself, but he's a world-class player. He can definitely get there. Jack says, yeah, JW, just know Xander's going to score on this course. Yeah, he's going to shoot 69 or lower pretty much every single day. That's for sure. Deep Personal says, I don't play Poston after Thursdays. I couldn't blame you there. He's awesome on Thursdays. Plays pretty well on Friday too. I must mention that Deep Purple. He plays pretty well on the Fridays as well. Justin says, I love him tomorrow. I think he goes out low. I agree. Mama says Xander taking it all. Wow, looks like you guys really love Xander here. You guys are really pulling for him over this weekend. Sway says, I played too much Finau, really killed you in Showdown. Yeah, I didn't play any this week. He owes you. I'm going to be jumping on it, right? Like I didn't play him for my 4-round lineups. I always love jumping on those guys that I faded because they always work out. Like even Corey Connors, right? I faded him for this week. I'm playing him tomorrow because that's just the role of fading players, right? When you fade them and they suck in round one, they almost always bounce back. So I'll be on them for sure. Max says, Sway, I think I saw you on the leaderboard on the top of Underdog. I saw you on Underdog too. Sway McThunder actually drafted against you last week when it came to Underdog. Hopefully you ended up winning that one today. He said, Spieth bogeyed 18. Oh, I hate to see it, but I'm sure you got second to third, though, so that's good to see. Mark says, does Cantlay bounce back tomorrow? So I just answered that. I do think he has a shot to. I'm not betting on it myself, but I think he's got a shot. Deep Purple says, when does Connor not lose strokes putting? This year. He's a gainer for the year in terms of shots gained putting, Deep Purple. So in the 2021-2022 season, he gains with the putter. Mighty's Helmut says, good evening, guys. I thought Rom was going to KO a fan on 15 before throwing a tantrum. Yeah, I saw that on TV. I was getting a drink on at that point. I was watching on the broadcast. And yeah, I wasn't sure what he was mad at because they didn't have the audio on. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it was a fan. Justin says, Harman, 16 pars and 2 birdies, definitely had his floor day. I didn't even know that, Justin. I didn't know he had a bogey-free day. I had him in my player pool. He was at like all the bottom of my lineups, right? Like I said, I have like 5 lineups in the top 50 at this point. So I wasn't worrying about Brian Harman for the day. That makes me even like him even more, Justin. Definitely agree with you there. Michael says, how about players genuinely in the mix? Oh, sorry. I can't speak for my life right now. Michael says, how many players are genuinely in the mix to cut down Scheffler? I mean, realistically, I think anybody that's -5 or better probably has a shot because you still have 3 rounds, right? He could come back to the field, right? He's 5 shots clear of Xander right now. So you have to assume like there's a universe where he, isn't the leader after tomorrow. Maybe Xander Schauffele is the winner at -11, right? He blows up, shoots like a 76. That's certainly possible. I think anybody from -5 and better has a shot to not only catch Scotty Scheffler, but hell, I think anybody in the field. I mean, even Corey Connors, right? Like if Scotty Scheffler comes back to the field, shooting 13 under over 3-4 rounds, I wouldn't put it past him. Now, is it likely? Would I bet on it? Hell no, right? But the guys at -5 or better, so like a Colin Morikawa and up, have to be licking their chops at this point, at least to finish in the top 3, right? Obviously, Scotty, if he goes out there and plays well for the last 4 rounds, that really shrinks the amount of people that can catch him. That probably limits it to the guys at like -7, -8, right? Like a Rory McIlroy, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sungjae Im, Cameron Smith, for example, Patrick Cantlay. Those sort of guys will be able to catch him even if he goes out there and performs well for the last 3 rounds. But hey, if he plays poorly, just one day, right, shoots over par, like 2 or 3 over par, it opens up a lot of the field. In fact, I'd probably include the guys at -4, like a Jordan Spieth, for example. Who else is at -4? Oh, I guess not many people. He might be the only one in the field at -4. Maybe even lump in Jordan Spieth at that point. I think that's well within the realm of possibility. Wilson says you should do XFL football. I just don't have time, boss, man. I'll have too many things going on. And he says, smashed again. Thanks, Gsluke. This is becoming a great habit. I agree. Noah says, haha, go off. Yeah, dude, you're getting banned. By the way, when you get whiskey to me, I just don't give a fuck. Like normally I'm a pretty agreeable guy, right? Where like people can say things that are a little bit disrespectful, a little, things that are just dumb, sometimes idiotic, and I'll let them go, right? Like there's that part of your conscience that's like, oh, do I really need to say something right now? You get whiskey in me, that's gone. Like if there's any sort of thing to grill you about, I'm going to do it because not only do I enjoy it when I'm like this, you deserve it, right? And a lot of times when I'm holding back, when I don't say things about people, it's like they deserve it, but it's like, do I really want to go there, expend my energy? And I'm like this, yeah, I don't give a fuck. You're gonna get the smoke, right? You come in here, you say shit as a Bengals fan, like, oh, you're happy about your lineups after round one. Yeah, I'm happy because I'm not in last place like you. Like, it's just, yeah, guys. I'm glad you guys enjoy the comedy there. Slapdicks are gonna slapdick, right? And yeah, the Bungles are gonna be Bungles. They suck. There's a reason why they never win playoff games. I hope you're still here, by the way, Bengals slapdick. Joe Burrow, by the way, probably ain't even going to be it, right? In the playoffs in the Super Bowl, he fucking choked like a little girl. He choked on it like a little 6-inch dildo. So get out of here, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow in the ground because you're dog shit. Mar Sharp says slapdicks of the week are Bengals fans and golf fans without umbrellas. Yeah, golf fans without umbrellas over number one. Grant says they just put a generational talent at QB behind the shittiest O-line ever. Hey, generational talents are your words for it. I don't think he's all that special. Martin says pin location just dropped, mostly all touch. Looks like you're trying to defend the course. Makes a lot of sense after what we saw today. That doesn't surprise me, but it does change a little bit of my prize pick strategy. So thank you for letting me know that, Martin. I will definitely keep that in mind. I have to take a look myself too. And it says, how do you feel about JT for over 4.5 birds? So yeah, we're going to talk about prize picks here in a second. I like that quite a bit. The pin locations are kind of hurting that. So I was going to be all over that. There's actually a guy at 3.5 birdies. I think is almost free here for Friday's round. We'll have to see. He said hole 15 is to the right. Let me think, hole 15. So that brings the water into play, right? That's the island hole. That's like 220. It's going to pay like 210 yards over water. Oh boy, that's going to be fun to watch tomorrow, Martin. I'm definitely going to get a seat in the build out there. They do have a public build out for hole 15 that I'll be sitting on. So look for me there. And he said, OMG, look at that pin. Yeah, I'm assuming it's a fun one, guys. I can't wait to look at this pin sheet. And Mark says, if you're holding back, I hate to hear it when you really let it go. Yeah, dude, I'm brutal. Like, I hate to say it. Like, I'm just a blunt human being. Like, if you're slapdick, you say something that's idiotic, I'm going to tell you. Because frankly, I'm not afraid to fight in person. Like, if someone has an issue with something, like, I'm not afraid to kick someone's ass. So I'll say whatever I need to say, right? Like, it's pretty simple when it comes to me. I'm willing to kick someone's ass. Martin says that hole will be carnage for sure. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Let's talk about some strategy here, though. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Bring it up here. Let's see what we've got. And yeah, Justin, I am in Atlanta. I'll go ahead and touch on that right now. I'm on site. I've been on site all weekend. I'll be there for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday too. It's a lot of fun. So let's talk through this, guys. So in terms of strategy, I mean, when it comes to building a cash lineup, like I hate to do this, but I think it makes sense to play Xander. Like he's like almost a lock when it comes to cash at this sort of build. In terms of like your second man in, I think you should try and take like the John Rahm, right? He's at the price tag where you can still, $7,600. You can still build a relatively well balanced lineup and see who would be a good cheapie to get to. I think Hideki in cash is like almost a must play. And let's see what else we've got. Morikawa is almost a must play when it comes to cash. Now I have to limit it at 4 guys. You got to remember, right? The DraftKings overlords, the DraftKings wenchmen are out there fucking trying to ban me out here, watching my streams, little fanboys. Get pissed off when I give 5 or 6 players in a lineup to you. But you have $8,100 remaining, right? You can probably figure out who to play at that point. I mean, if you sort it by salary, I'm just going to give you names that rhyme with the ones that I'd take. Damn rung, right? Makes a lot of sense. Up there above $8,100. And then tractor, I can't think of any word that rhymes with it, but it starts with a V. Would be the other player that I take. And it starts with 77 with the price there would be the other guy that I take, right? I would just take guys that first off at the top of the leaderboard, right? With a John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, underpriced Hideki, underpriced Colin Morikawa. And then the last 2, right? I can't really give you my reasoning there, but I think you can figure it out. They make a lot of sense here for the next round. So those are the type of guys I'd be taking there in a cash lineup. Just, I don't think you have to overthink it, right? There's a few pieces of chalk that make a lot of sense. Probably plug them into your cash lineup. I'd say Scotty Scheffler for cash he'd be fine too, right? But he's $10,800, a little bit more expensive. So I guess that would be the main reason not to play him. I guess Justin Thomas would also make a lot of sense for cash too, just because he's $8,900. He loves the golf course. He's a world class player. But outside of that, right, the guys that we touched on, like a Xander Schauffele, for example, John Rahm, make a lot of sense here for the next round. What we're going to do now is a GPP build, so a little bit more creative, right? This is what I would be doing if I was hand building all my lineups. Let's talk through that. So I'm going to be a little bit more unique here. I think starting with Xander might be a little bit too chalky, at least if we're going to try and take some chalk in our other spots. Let's show you what a more balanced build would look like, right? If we start with a John Rahm, our second man in could be a Tony Finau. I love the idea of taking a Victor Hovland there. I mean, we still have $8,000 remaining, and that's what I was talking about. You can pretty much play whoever the hell you want if you go with this sort of build. You could take a JT if you wanted to, and that puts you at 76.5 remaining per player. You get the point, right? Colin Morikawa was $7,500, right? It's ridiculous the type of lineups that you can make at this point. This is the type of build that I personally prefer, both from a GPP standpoint and for a single entry. So if I'm entering in, a two to three max single entry with 200 to 1,000 other entries, I'm not as interested in taking a Scotty Scheffler and taking even a Xander and then dropping down to the 9K range. With pricing as soft as it is and just how strong the field is in general. I mean, I mentioned before that there's like 4 or 5 players that are kind of like the odd man out that I don't think are really fitting this field. I mean, outside of that, you can play like anybody. I mean, $6,900 for Max Homa is ridiculous. That's just criminal in terms of pricing. $7,300 for Jordan Spieth. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. Some of the prices that we're getting on these players. I'd rather just jam in a bunch of those guys than take a Scotty Scheffler and a John Rahm together and have to take one of these scrubs down low. Like, and they're still being owned. Like, I think Tom Hoagie was like 13%. Brian Harman was still like 14% owned. It's not like you're getting them at like 2-3%. Like you normally would for somebody on a showdown slate at like $6,200. They're still getting their fair share. So that's the thought process for large field GPPs. What we're going to do now is go through prize picks. So first off, today was a smash. We had $1,000 of entries, made right around $4,100. So I took $2,100 and withdrew it, right? That's what you do when you win a lot of money, pretty much no matter what you're doing. Betting is first off, pay yourself. And we still have $2,000 to bet with. So we're going to have a lot of fun here for the next round, also for Saturday and Sunday. But let's talk through each category. So for the birdie or better board, it's kind of similar to what we saw today. I mean, from the scoring conditions, right? I mean, it's pretty much going to be a copy and paste of what we saw here for Friday's round. I'm expecting there to be a lot of overs. And today they went 8, 3, and 1. So 8 overs hit, 3 ended up losing, 1 ended up pushing. A lot of them were at 0.5, so there weren't that many push lines to begin with. And I'd expect similar results because the only guys that are higher, you have Scotty Scheffler at 5, Rory McIlroy at 5 birdies now. They were at 4.5 yesterday, and both of them absolutely smashed. I mean, especially Rory. He made 9 birdies or better today. Just outstanding stuff for him. In fact, I'd probably still take the over on him at 5 birdies, just based on how well that he's playing. But a lot of the board here, right? Corey Connors at 3.5 birdies or better. It's like the one prop that I'm going to give you here on this board, right? The rest are going to be on my Patreon page afterwards. Corey Connors over 3.5. The average today was 4.26 birdies. Last year, in 3 or 4 rounds, he made 4 birdies in 2 rounds, made 6 birdies in 1 round. He'd have a 75% hit rate, right? And today didn't have his best stuff, right? He didn't make many birdies to speak of. I'm willing to forgive that, right? He's going to have a bad round from time to time. So Corey Connors over 3.5, count me in. That's definitely a prop I'm taking. I have my eye on Jordan Spieth over 4. That's a prop that makes quite a bit of sense. First off, loves the golf course. It had a lot of success here over the years, but also hit a ton of greens. Hit 14 greens on the day. Just couldn't buy a putt for his life. Those are the type of spots I'm looking for. But I mean, outside of that, right? Find players that model well, that played decently in round 1, and that's probably somebody I'm taking an over on. So I know somebody mentioned JT before. That's one of them that I'm considering. But if you want the rest for birdie or better, you're going to have to check out the Patreon. There's another 2 to 3 that I'll be adding. Next up for strokes, it's a similar board, except that now you have Scotty Scheffler at 67, which I probably wouldn't touch. Same thing with Rory McIlroy at 67.5. It's kind of tempting, right? Remember, the scoring average was 2.1 shots under par. And a lot of the guys here on the board are just way better than average players. I mean, just the world-class guys, right? Guys in the top 5 to top 10 of the official World Golf rankings. it'd be unders for me, right? I wouldn't be fading any of these top end players, but they're far from locks to get to a 67, right? Again, the average was 67.9. So obviously, they're still going to have to play a lot better than average to get to that performance. It's just that they're pretty likely to do so. So maybe be a little bit more selective when it comes to the strokes board than you are with the birdie or better board. But in general, I'd be leaning towards unders in that category. Birdie or better matchup today, we went perfect, which I think it's the first time for quite some time we've gone perfect on birdie or better matchups because they're volatile. Now, I mentioned earlier that I might try and get hoodwinked or might get a little bit tricked into playing more birdie or better matchups, but I'm too bright for that. I'm not going to let them swindle me into it. We're still going to play a few of them. There's a few like 50 to 60 percenters that I had my eye on when the slate dropped. But after getting completely killed on them for round one, Prize Picks, unsurprisingly, right, tried to fix the board. They made them a little bit more competitive here for round two. So there's a few that I like, just not nearly the smash board that we had here for Thursday. In terms of greens of regulation, the average today was 12.3 greens. In last year, it was 12.1. That was also with receptive conditions. So obviously, even more receptive today. This is kind of a fade for me. Honestly, this like whole board just makes sense. Like I went through it earlier and I was trying to find overs and unders. I guess I would kind of like shade the under in some of the top end guys, like 13 and a half. I mean, that's a lot of greens, right? Scotty Scheffler, shot the absolute grass off the place today, yet still went well under his 13 and a half greens. I'm sure John Rahm and Colin went over. That's why they had the rounds that they had. But even if they shoot like 2 to 3 under, they're more than capable of going under 13 and a half greens. I mean, that's just a hard thing to do, right? Miss 5 greens and you're under. So I wouldn't be taking the over. That's for sure on the guys for top. I mean, I wouldn't even consider taking the over on guys at 13 and a half. In fact, I wouldn't even consider taking the over on guys at 13. Like it's not even in my thought process at this point. If anything, I'd take the under. And at that point, like I don't even love the under on them. Like they're world-class players. They're more than capable of hitting 14 greens, hitting 13 greens. But I would definitely shade towards the under. At 12 and a half, they're just complete stayaways. I don't want any exposure in either direction to any of the guys at 12 and a half. Again, the average was 12.3. These guys are slightly better than average. I mean, just to give you an idea, I have like Matty Fitz projected for 12.6 greens. I have like GT Poston projected for like 12.4. I mean, you're getting like 0.1 green edges. It's just, there's nothing to be had there. And like over with these guys, right? Like they're not like 12.4, 12.6. It's like Rory McIlroy is like 12.9 greens. It's like Jordan Spieth's like 12.8. There's just not large edges to be had on the board with greens regulation. So I hate to say the fade the entire board, but kind of. I don't like that one there too much. And same thing with fairways. For round one, they had like everyone at 7.5. They had a bunch of guys at 8 fairways that are well above average players. And last year, they hit 9.1 fairways on average. Today, a little bit lower, towards 8.8. From what I noticed on the grounds, it looked like the fairways were cut a little bit narrower this year than what we saw for there in 2021. So maybe that has something to do with it. But these all seem fair. Like the guys that like Matty Fitz today, he hit 9 fairways. Now he's at 8.5. He had a good day driving too, so I'm not sure if he backs that up. John Rahm, in fact, would be taking the under 8.5. I guess Rory McIlroy would probably take the under at 8. He only hit 7 fairways today. And that's kind of his MO. There would be a few fades on this board that I'm considering, but not many overs that I'd be taking. I mean, especially like these guys at 9.5 fairways, that's just a tough task, especially when the average fairway width at this golf course is just 24.4 yards wide. It's a lot narrower than what we're used to seeing. So that's what I'm thinking with this board, right? Again, fairways and greens, there's a few fades that I like, but not my favorite categories. Birdie or better, same thing, right? A little bit volatile, but with birdies, right? A lot of overs that I like. Like we're expecting similar conditions for tomorrow as what we saw today. And they went 8-3-1 today. With strokes, they also went 8-3-1. I guess I should have mentioned that. And the board's really similar too. So I consider pretty much the same strategy with birdie or better and strokes there. Should be a relatively high hit percentage. Once again, they're not locks. So as always, especially with Prize Picks, I've come along on this, guys. If you haven't noticed this, if you're on the Patreon, you've definitely noticed this. I flex plays a lot more often now. Just try and take more profit than losses when it comes to Prize Picks. Because even when we get smash boards like this, where I expect, maybe an 8-3-1 record, an 8-3-1 record, right, is still just under, like a 77% hit rate. you're still going to lose 23% of the time, right? And if you're playing power plays and you're only doing power plays and you only hit on one or two for the day, you might only make 100 or $200. Whereas, if you took all those and just did flex plays, you're going to win at least probably $1,000 with that same type of performance. And now, while you might not have like a $6,000 day where like you're absolutely smashing, you're like Jeff Bezos for the day, you're going to have a lot more days where you hit for a lot of money for like $1,000 or $2,000, for example, which I think should be your goal when it comes to playing prize picks, right? Don't try to go out there and be Bezos every single day, or else you're going to go broke before you end up going Bezos. So that's how I'm going to end the stream here, guys. That's all I've got for you. We've already gone way over our allotted time here. Let's see what we've got down there in chat. Are there any questions? It looks like Jimmy says, Luke Connors was bumped already. Wow, that figures, right? Figure that would already happen before the stream. But no questions. That works for me, guys. I've already been live all day. I've been walking the course. I'm freaking exhausted at this point. But definitely wanted to bring the stream to you and whatnot, hang out with all of you. It's a blast as always. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, feel a little bit more prepared here for the next round as a result. We're going to try and do the same thing tomorrow. So no promises, right? We're on vacation. I get one too many whiskeys in me. It might be pretty hard to do a live stream, but hey, if we can do one tomorrow, we'll try and do the same thing. Probably right around like 8:30, 9 p.m. I'm covering round 3 Showdown, also round 3 prize picks. But best of luck with all of your round 2 stuff, whether you're playing Showdown, prize picks, or both. Today was an absolute epic one. Let's go ahead and run it back, right? What would be 2 days in a row? At that point, we'd be sitting pretty sweet for our four round lineups too. And by the way, guys, I'll just say, best of luck to everybody out there but Bengals fans. If you're a Bengals fan, I don't want to hear from you. I hope you go 0-8, 0-17 this year, right? We got 17 games on the record. That'd be pretty fun to see.